Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Volcanic Yugioh deck profile for post-Age of Overlord. We got the new Fire Recovery spell in the latest Yu-Gi-Oh! Booster set, and I made some changes to the Volcanic deck since the last update from Soul Burning Duelist Pack. So I figured I'd update this one last time before Maze of Millennia in January, where we'll be getting more support overall for the Pyro archetype used by Axel Brody in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX series. Definitely one of the decks I was excited for from the support announced in the original Duelist Pack that we got the new support from. But still, Fire Recovery definitely does help with some overall plays that you can make in the deck. So I figured an update was due. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. For our boss monster, we're running the one copy of Volcanic Emperor. It cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your hand or graveyard by banishing 3 Pyro monsters or 1 Blaze Accelerator card face up on the field or in the graveyard. You can only special summon 1 Volcanic Emperor once per turn, and when summoned this way, you can inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each banished Pyro monster. Then you can set 1 Volcanic Trap directly from your deck. Each time your opponent special summons a monster, inflict 500 damage to your opponent, so it has burn damage, but also for the fact that you have to banish Pyro monsters, it works very, very well since you can shuffle back those Pyro monsters with Fire Recovery for a draw, recycling some of your cards like Volcanic Scattershot, thanks to this spell and having a targetable area in the banish zone to be able to use for the cost of Volcanic Emperor to summon out into the field, and then also just reuse those cards again. Also running 3 copies of Volcanic Trooper. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add 1 Volcanic card from your deck to your hand except for Volcanic Trooper, and you can discard 1 card to special summon 1 bomb token onto the field to your opponent's field. Each time 1 is destroyed, its controller takes 500 damage. You can only use each effect of Volcanic Trooper once per turn, but the Volcanic Trooper also gives you more access to your Volcanic cards, so you can just add Volcanic Emperor from your deck to your hand. Sadly, you can't add Fire Recovery with this card, but you do have access to our new Volcanic Blaze Accelerator for that search, so plenty of other cards to make use of off of this card search, and then just being able to give your opponent the token for destruction power for the special summon of the bomb token to your opponent's field. Also 3 copies of Volcanic Rocket for the added search of when it's summoned to add 1 Blaze Accelerator card from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So what I like about this is that you just have to summon out your Volcanic Rocket, and the target play for your Fire Recovery means that you can summon it from the graveyard, get the search off of this card as well, while setting up some other Volcanic cards in the graveyard thanks to this spell. One of them being our Volcanic Shell, which we are also running 3 copies of once per turn. You can pay 500 life points to add 1 Volcanic Shell from your deck to your hand. This card must be in the graveyard to activate and resolve this effect. So more search power for just other cards to use. Volcanic Shell will just be an engine for the search and make use of for cards like Volcanic Trooper, being able to discard it off to the graveyard thanks to this card, or if we search it off of any of the other search power of another Volcanic Shell, it can be used as that discard fodder as well. One of the most powerful monsters in the main deck is our Volcanic Scattershot, which we're running 3 copies of. If it's sent to the graveyard, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. If it's sent to the graveyard by the effect of Blaze Accelerator card, you can send 2 Volcanic Scattershots from your hand or deck to the graveyard to destroy all monsters you control. So then you just have more of the setup in your graveyard thanks to this card, using our new Blaze Accelerator for the Volcanic Blaze Accelerator to then send the card from face up to then send more Volcanic cards for that setup, which we'll go over when we get to the spells. And lastly, for the Volcanic monsters, 3 copies of Volcanic Rimfire. If it's sent to the graveyard, you can activate one of these effects, but you can only use each of the following of Rimfire once per turn. You can banish this card from your graveyard to send 1 Volcanic monster from your deck to the graveyard, except for Volcanic Rimfire. So I would say one of the other ways to set up Scattershot for the graveyard send, or you can banish 1 Blaze Accelerator card from face up on your field or graveyard to place 1 Blaze Accelerator continuous spell from your hand or deck face up onto the field. So then we have access to the other ones that we run. We are running the original Blaze Accelerator as well, so another potential target with our Rimfire to set face up on the field. For the rest of the main deck monsters, the 1 copy of Blaster Dragon Ruler of the Infernos, just another card that you can send to set up other Volcanic monsters in the graveyard, while also being able to destroy 1 of your opponent's cards with this card, and then having other banish plays to then summon it back onto the field. Once again, what I love about the new Fire Recovery is even if we banish plenty of cards, we can add them back to our deck to reuse again thanks to this spell. And then lastly, 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. On top of the fact that it is the hand trap to use in the deck, it's also a fire attribute monster as well to be used for summoning out any other monsters if we have to in an emergency situation. For the spells, I spoke about it enough already with the beginning of the video for the update, but I'm running 3 copies of Fire Recovery. You target 1 fire monster in your graveyard, send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard, and if you do special summon the targeted monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 3 of your fire monsters that are banished and or in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck, then draw 1 card. You can only use this effect of Fire Recovery once per turn, but the first effect is not a once per turn, so you have multiple targets as long as you have the cards to send from your hand to the graveyard for Fire Recovery. So you can use Volcanic Shell to add another shell, then send that shell off of Fire Recovery to summon out another one from your graveyard, using that fresh new Volcanic Shell in your graveyard to get another search for that final Volcanic Shell. That's why I like running it in the update. It just works very, very well with the Fire Recovery, but any setup you have in your graveyard to then target another card could potentially mean a search depending on the monster you summoned out onto the field, including cards like our Volcanic Trooper or even our Volcanic Rocket. And then I also run 2 copies of Volcanic Blaze Accelerator and the 1 copy of the original Blaze Accelerator. So with Volcanic Blaze Accelerator, you activate this card by sending 1 Blaze Accelerator from your hand, deck, or face up on the field to the graveyard. You can only control 1 Volcanic Blaze Accelerator. Once per turn during your main phase, you can special summon 1 Volcanic monster from your hand. And once per turn, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls and send 1 level 1 Pyro monster from your deck to the graveyard to destroy that monster. So giving your opponent the token with your Trooper gives it the target to also destroy, thanks to this card. Sending another Volcanic monster from your hand to that target for that monster, then sends the level 1 Pyro monster from your deck to the graveyard, so you can set up cards like Shell or Rimfire in the graveyard, and the Volcanic Blaze Accelerator for sending another target with our Blaze Accelerator, which would also send a Pyro monster with 500 less attack from our hand to the graveyard to destroy that target by targeting 1 monster your opponent controls. I also run the 2 copies of Fire Ejection for sending 1 Pyro monster from your deck to the graveyard. Then if you send a Volcanic monster to the graveyard, you can apply one of these effects and inflict damage to your opponent equal to its level times 100. So the best target to send off of this, I would say, would be your Volcanic Emperor for the most burn damage to give with this card. And you can special summon 1 bomb token onto the field to your opponent's field. Each time one's destroyed, it takes 500 points of damage. So you have either option with this spell. Most of the time you can set up your bigger monster, but if you've already done so, use the second effect for more of the Pyro token setup. And then for more generic spells, the 2 copies of Pot of Prosperity. We don't use our extra deck for much, aside from some generic summons to go into when we get more of our Pyro monsters in the graveyard. But Pot of Prosperity helps for searching out the particular cards we may need from the top of the deck for our combo. And also the 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. If our opponent tries to stop any of our search plays, we can at least use a drawback power or take any of their own resources away from them, with the last of the spells being 1 Call by the Grave and 1 1-for-1 as another graveyard setup, but also being able to get some of the other level 1 monsters onto the field for us to use. And then for the traps, 2 copies of Blaze Accelerator Reload. This card's name becomes Tri-Blaze Accelerator while in the spell and trap card zone. So another card you could also set up with your face-up plays for your Volcanics on the field, especially with the Rimfire setup to send 1 Volcano monster or to banish 1 Blaze Accelerator card to place a Blaze Accelerator continuous spell or trap. So this can just help to set Blaze Accelerator Reload all the more faster face-up in our spell and trap card zone. And then also during the main phase, being able to send a Volcanic card from our hand to the graveyard to draw 1 card. So you can send your Scatter Shot to gain the additional send to destroy your opponent's other cards with these 3 cards. And then also the 1 Volcanic Inferno for more of the setup when your opponent activates a monster effect to banish a Pyro monster from your graveyard to inflict 500 damage to your opponent. Then if you banish the Volcanic monster to activate this effect, you can negate the effect of that monster. During your opponent's end phase, you can target 2 of your Volcanic monsters that are banished and or in your graveyard and place them in the bottom of the deck. While you have some recover power, I use this mostly for the monster effect negation of our opponent's cards, with the last of the traps being 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, just along with Ash Blossom, another way to stop any of our opponent's plays. For the extra deck monsters, as I said before, using a pretty generic lineup, so 2 copies of Link Karibo for all the level 1 monsters we run, the 2 copies of Doolittle Chimera, so we have another fire booster on the field, but also just having an additional one as a potential Pot of Prosperity banish, and then also the 1 Heat of the Fire Charmer Ablaze, the 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Underclock Taker, 1 IP Masquerade, actually The 2 alternate arts always get me, but 2 additional ones, once again, just for another pot of prosperity banished target. And then also the 1 Salmon Great Sunlight Wolf for the recycle power, just needing 2 fire effect monsters, and then to add back a fire monster from our graveyard when we summon something to its arrow. So we can even particularly make Sunlight Wolf and then go for the summon of one of our tokens to our opponent's field to initiate this add back play as well. And then also 1 Nightmare Unicorn, the 1 Topologic Bomber Dragon, and the 1 Access Code Talker for the rest of the Link monsters, with our Xyz monsters being the 1 Abyss Dweller and the 1 Zeus to finish off the extra deck. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, I've talked about Fire Recovery enough, so let's just go over some of the initial plays. Let's say we have the option for our setup with our Volcanic Rimfire, so then having the banish play cost for this card, being able to activate one of these effects, you can banish this card to send 1 Volcanic monster from your deck to the graveyard, except for Rimfire. So then you have the send of our Volcanic Rocket to the graveyard. Then you can activate your Fire Recovery, targeting the Volcanic Rocket, and then just having to send 1 additional card, depending on what the card may be, from our hand to the graveyard to summon out that other monster to the field. Then the Volcanic Rocket will activate as well to add a Blaze Accelerator card from our deck or graveyard to your hand. We can then add our Volcanic Blaze Accelerator. You activate this card by sending 1 Blaze Accelerator card from your deck or face on the field to the graveyard. So then you can send the additional card using the option of your Blaze Accelerator Reload, sending this to the graveyard to set up for your accelerator to activate it on the field. Then using this card during your main phase, special summon 1 Volcanic monster from your hand. Once per turn, you can target face a monster your opponent controls, send 1 level 1 Pyro monster from your deck to the graveyard to destroy that monster. So then you can send the additional Volcanic Shell to the graveyard. This will give you the additional search of that card as well. And then also being able to banish your Blaze Accelerator in your graveyard to send the additional 3 scatter shots from our deck to the graveyard as well. So the sending of the 3 scatter shots not only will activate the initial send of our Volcanics to our opponent's field for the destruction play, but it also gives us the 3 monsters to then have the potential target for Fire Recovery, to banish it, to shuffle all 3 back into the deck to draw a card. If you needed to go for the banish, let's say, of your destruction, you can always use the card, but if you had the Volcanic Emperor as an added card, if you summoned out your Volcanic Trooper instead of Rocket, because you already had the accelerator in your hand to use, you can always go for the Volcanic Emperor play, sending the 3 scatter shots for the destruction play as well, using the Volcanic Emperor to banish the 3 cards to summon this card onto the field, and then use the Fire Recovery in the same manner, since it can go for the graveyard or the banished cards to shuffle back to then draw into an additional card. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy. Once again, happy with the update for the deck, and just want to do one more update to the Volcanics before we get more support in the month of January next year with the Maze of Millennia booster set. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.